Welcome to the March 2nd meeting of the Hamilton Zoning Board of Appeals. Our agenda is continuation of a public hearing on the property at 652 Asbury Street. Public hearing for applicants seeking relief from zoning bylaw 5.3.4.5 and section 5.0 non-conforming uses and structures in order to construct a 3-bay garage with a game room with half bath kitchen above at 968 Bay Road. Owners John and Candace Simorian. And public hearing, applicants seeking relief from 5.3.4.5 in order to construct a 1-car garage with mudroom connector and master suite above at 37 Howard Street. Owners Thomas and Erica Mann. We do have some minutes to review and approve, and we welcome our newest member, associate member, Stephen DeRocher, who's here. Where the board is meeting hybrid tonight. Some of us are here in person, and the other voting member this evening, Andy Phillip, is on Zoom. So. Okay, and we are going to take things a little out of order and hear from the applicant on 37 Howard Street because their representative, Brian Stein, has a birthday party to get to. So why don't you tell us what you're proposing on behalf of your clients?
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for taking us first tonight. I appreciate that. Brian Stein with BDS Design. Eric Mark here is my client, 37 Howard Street. They have a standard colonial on Howard Street. It has no garage. There's an existing driveway that holds a couple, 2-3 cars deep. The house is mostly in a 50-foot no build zone to the wetlands behind the home, as you can see on the site plan. We've talked to conservation, and they suggested that we stay on the existing driveway and not go beyond the existing pavement. And even then, we're partly in the 50-foot. It's already disturbed. They said we can most likely build on that. So to get a reasonable garage that's only 22 feet deep, along with a mudroom connector and a master above, we're asking for relief to be 21.2 feet away from the street versus 25. And after talking to the building inspector, the house itself is about 26 feet away from the property line, but steps protrude into it. So he suggested we go with special permit. So we'll basically be almost even with the end of the steps with the front of the garage, in front of the addition. So that is why we are here tonight. We have the plan, you can see, it's like I said, a garage, a mudroom, and a master bedroom above. Pretty straightforward overall. We feel that it fits within the neighborhood. There's a number of homes. One across the street that has a 2-car garage with room above, and then there's another couple homes a little bit farther down towards Linden. One really that has a single car with a large room above, and then a number of houses that have 2 or 1-car garages attached. So certainly fits within the neighborhood, we feel. So if you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer.
Okay, so well, I guess you somewhat anticipated my first question. So as you normally on these, the board has typically allowed an extension of the non-conforming use where you're not increasing a nonconformity or so that it becomes a variance. So so when I saw the garage, the front of the garage, of, you know, I guess, I don't know, so 3, 4, 5 feet out from the front of the existing house. Well, is the reason you can't make it even with the existing house because of the no build issue?
Correct. They want us to stay on the existing driveway pavement, so I pushed it as far back as that goes. They asked that we not push it farther back. That's undisturbed land behind where we're proposing.
Okay, so is this dotted line the existing drive?
Yeah, so the dash line
Okay.
there behind the
Okay.
addition lines.
So it essentially goes to the edge of the existing driveway.
Correct. In the back, yeah.
Okay. And did the building inspector opine whether the steps would be,
Yes, well, we had originally thought we were going to be here for a variance, then he said no, it should just be a finding given that the steps protrude into the setback, front setback, and that he considers those to be part of the structure.
Okay. Are there any questions from my colleagues on the board?
So there was a garage here previously,
More than 2 years ago,
more than 2 years.
before they bought the home, a developer came in and kind of redid the home, took that garage down. They needed to upgrade the septic or redo the septic, so it needed to be where the garage was essentially. So they took that down.
Okay.
It was a detached garage that, you know, was basically where that existing leach for that leach field at some point.
Yeah, because I saw Google Earth and it looked like it was a lot closer than this garage is
Correct.
to the road.
Correct.
Okay, I guess just to the file, and it's really, I'd like just a note from the Concom and the building inspector as to both of those items, so that, you know, if it comes up.
Yeah, we still have to go to conservation. They're making us file a full notice of intent. So
Okay, so you can tell them that we'd like the zoning. I mean, I'm not inclined to hold this up, but you know, that we'd like that for the file. I guess I have one last question to scratch this itch. Where do the houses on either side of what's the setback look like, if you have anything that would show?
One towards Linden, towards Linden is in a similar, roughly, area of setback. There's really one really up the street a little farther, just a little farther back. So,
Yes,
I think
because there is that funky provision in the bylaw.
I did look at that, and it's not. I mean, we'll be a little farther forward.
Okay.
I think they built the house where it was years ago, knowing there were wetlands. They probably pushed as far forward as they could.
Andy, do you have any questions?
No, my comments prior to this was just talking to the conservation committee, which sounds like you've done, acknowledging that changing the even though you already have existing setbacks, changing that setback. But thank you for all the information. I have no questions. I'd be inclined.
Are there any questions from members of the public, either live or on Zoom? Okay, with that sort of documentation from the Concom and the building inspector, I think it, squeezes in to, if this is a variance averse board, so, but I think, in the circumstances, like to, if there are no, well, I guess first, if I'm sensing that my colleagues on the board are as well. Before we go to a vote, are there any conditions that colleagues think should be attached?
Bill, I liked what you suggested about the letter from the ComCon and the building inspector.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. So, then I would entertain a motion to grant the extension of the non-conforming use for the property at 37 Howard Street. Okay, moved by Bruce Gingrich. Is there a second, Andy?
I second. Andy Phillip.
Okay, because we're on this hybrid, I think we need to do a roll call vote. So I'll start with you, Andy.
Andy Phillip, aye.
Bruce Gingrich, aye. Bill Bowler, aye. Okay, you know the drill. 14 days to write, file a decision. The decision's filed is the 20-day appeal period, then you can get your building permit. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
okay,
Appreciate it.
happy birthday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, before we get to Jeff, the continuation of the public hearing on the property at 652 Asprey Street, we did receive a letter from the applicant asking for leave to withdraw without prejudice. And the board's practice to allow that. So I would, if there's no questions or discussion, I entertain a motion to allow the applicant for 652 Asprey Street to withdraw his petition without prejudice, even that he could refile it within 2 years. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Bruce Gingrich, motion. Is there a second, Andy?
Andy Phillip, aye.
Okay, so another roll call vote. Andy?
Andy Phillip, aye.
Bruce Gingrich, aye. Waller, aye. Okay, so that brings us to the public hearing on 968 Bay Road. Owners John and Candace Samarian, their representative Jeff Alsop here. So,
Hello, everybody. Jeff Alsop Design, next door neighbor to Town Hall. I've been hired by the Samarians to do renovations and improvements to the house on Bay Road 968. It turns out to be one of the oldest houses in Hamilton, dating to the 1600s. What we're doing here is trying to put forward some additional construction for garages and family rooms and basically allow the Samarians and their growing family of graduates from college and people getting married to enjoy the property. There is an existing cottage, which is really, I guess, the subject of the non-conforming use. The property is almost 2 acres. Will fall short of 80,000 square feet for the zone. And the existing cottage is a essentially 2-bay garage with a 2-bedroom apartment above. And that's what it looks like now. So what we're actually proposing is to reduce the scale of the existing cottage. You can see on these drawings, we're actually taking away the full height walls and coming in with knee walls, lowering the roof profile, and then reducing that to 1 bedroom. So it's still an apartment, an apartment over a garage with 1 bedroom. We're also reducing the kitchen from a full kitchen to kind of a commissary type of kitchen that you'd have in a suite. So it's really not to be, as the historians have said, we want everyone eating at our dinner table. We don't want people up there. They don't really intend to rent it. It's just expansion space for the main house. In addition to that, we are proposing to add a 3-bay garage with a game room, family room above. We are connecting it below grade, and in part that's because it's really a burrow. The buildings are burrowed into a hill. So in order to essentially waterproof and fix up the foundations for this building and prevent doing these, we're going to essentially build a retaining wall there. This is what it looks like. And we're keeping the existing foundation orientation for the cottage. And we have an issued a permit to do that. So the cottage has been permitted already. So what we're here for, I guess, is relief to, I guess it's called expanding the non-conforming use. In a way, I don't think it is. I think in a way we're reducing it and we're building another structure. Exactly. So the property is conforming completely in terms of setbacks. Every building, every thing is dimensionally conformed.
And it's still only going to be basically one living room. Is that correct?
Correct.
One kitchen.
That's correct.
How many baths total?
A full and a powder room. Full bath is in the apartment, and this is a powder room here. We want to make clear that the whole commissary, it does have a refrigerator and has a sink, but it doesn't have a stove. It doesn't have
That's now.
it has a full kitchen now.
So, okay. I'm assuming this predates so. So
1968 is around where the building was built.
it's grandfathered, I guess.
It has been occupied continuously
Yeah.
too. It's not.
It's a young grandfather. It's a young grandfather.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Any questions from my colleagues?
Bill, I have a question. Is there a provision in the building code or bylaws that mention because they're 2 separate structures from a fire standpoint? Isn't there something about like the fire being able to spread? It's supposed to be like 25 feet or something along those lines, but is that waived because there's this underground burrow that they're essentially one structure?
I can partially answer that. That hasn't been raised by the building inspector here, but yes, there are considerations for separation. In fact, the 2 buildings are far enough apart that they meet that anyway. They're just linked in the basement level.
Does that answer your question, Andy?
It did, thank you. Yeah, if the building inspector brought it up, great.
Any other questions from my colleagues?
Is there any, They're gonna know. We're gonna end up with 4 bays, right? 4 parking garage, 4 car garage.
Yeah, I can address that first a little bit. What we're doing on the cottage is we're actually reducing what was a double wide garage door, 2 bay. And we have a single bay, and then we have an entrance. So there's no possibility for the extra car.
That's the max. 4.
Any other questions from my colleagues?
It looks great. The drawings are look like a really fun place to hang out. Bill, your next question is probably what abutters think and if you guys can share any comments that abutters have had.
I was just gonna ask if there was any, because they're connected, if there's a square footage consideration, are they considered one, although they're 2 separate structures, or are they one living space because they're connected?
Well, I guess what I think what makes a dwelling unit is having a kitchen. So, like, there are a number in the bylaw. There are different sections on apartments, in-law apartments. One of them, the temporary living apartment, basically when when it's not being used, going to be used by a caretaker, the kitchen is supposed to come out. So that's
Efficiency kitchen.
right.
Ameliorates that.
Right. There are, they've chosen to go this route. Filing could consider at some point, you'd have to run the numbers. It might qualify as a for a special permit as a in-law, as under one of the apartment sections, which wouldn't make any difference on the ground. It just might make it that then it's not non-conforming. It's more conforming. That's, you'd have to file for that. People have done it. So, are there any questions from members of the public, either here in the memorial room or on Zoom land? Not?
I see no hands up, Bill.
Okay. Are there any? The only condition I would put on it is just to make it clear that there can only be one dwelling unit. However, it's built. Yeah.
Pushiness about this, but the living space, overnight space, the hangout space, the space that has the stove.
So that'll be a condition.
Yeah. Things can't move, or this can't, this becomes a bunk room. Those beds they roll up in there, then you've got the pool. Or a few walls down there. But, so then also we have really 2.
Yeah.
So we gotta make sure that's.
I think one dwelling unit. I actually think connecting the 2 underground serves as a possible partial solution to that. Not that someone couldn't do it, but if they were completely separate, then I would say that to your point. But we're perfectly willing to limit it as is to being a dwelling unit.
Okay, since that we're ready to take a vote on this, so I would entertain a motion to grant the extension of the non-conforming structure with the condition that it be clear that there could be no additional dwelling unit. Is there a motion? Moved by Bruce Gingrich. Second, Dan?
Second by Andy Phillip.
Okay, roll call vote. Andy,
Andy Phillip, aye.
Bruce? Bill Bowler, aye. So, 8 days, I file the decision, and that's the appeal period, so then you can get your building permit. So, no one comes out the woodwork. Okay.
Yeah, it is interesting. We do have the permit for the cottage part. So that's
Yeah.
granted. But I guess we can start that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's good to see you.
We do have some.
Yeah, there's. That's why it's not at the main house.
We do have some minutes that you are needing to approve. Anyone have any questions or comments on them? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the 2nd, 2022 zoning board of appeals meeting. Moved by Bruce. Is there a second, Andy?
I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, roll call vote. Andy,
Andy Phillip, aye.
Bruce? Bill Bowler, aye. Okay, that's all the business we have before us. Again, welcome to Steve Rocher, our new associate member. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Second,
I second that motion.
okay, roll call vote. Andy,
Andy Phillip, aye.
Bruce, Bill Bowler, aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.